Chapter 6. The forklift rolled across the floor, thick sunglass tires silent on the smooth sheetcrete. The powerful electric motor hummed louder as the driver slid the special hoop clamps around the specimen container and lifted it. Carefully, the driver knew that breaking a container was a shooting offense. She backed off slightly, then pivoted the fork and headed for the Queen's chamber. Spears watched, nodding to himself as the specimen was carted away. The driver was good. She deftly avoided the hoses and power lines connected to the bases of the other containers in the vast storage room. Spears had more than 100 of the alien drones undergoing suspension here, each of which had a complex chemical bath being pumped into it full time. According to the R&D scientists, the hypnotic chem flowing through the special drones should match their particular chemistry enough to affect them, to make them more amenable to outside suggestion. Spears grinned, chewed on the end of his cigar. It was real tobacco, vat-grown and illegal as hell, but that didn't mean shit. Out here, he was the law. The cigar wasn't as good as those made from sun-raised and barn-dried leaf, but it was what he had. Oh, he still had 6 of the precious Jamaican Lonsdales left, Maduros and dark as they came, each sealed in its glass tube of inert gas. But those were worth a fortune. He could get 10,000 credits apiece if he wanted to sell them. He chuckled, as if money meant anything. Money was nothing. Money was only a means to an end. The only reason you needed it at all was for supplies, equipment, to get things done. Here at third base, they didn't even use the stuff. The troops took what they were given, and liked it or lumped it. The cigars had come from a vault in Cuba, a gift from a rich man who had been grateful to Spears for saving his ass in some dinky Banana Republic revolution. There had been 8 of the valuable smokes. He'd smoked the first on the day he got his stars and command of third base. He'd smoked the second when his tame medicos had succeeded in bringing forth an alien queen and establishing her in a controlled hive. He planned to smoke the third after he won his first battle against the wild strain aliens back on Earth. Thomas A.W. Spears had plans, big plans, and they amounted to no less than the retaking of man's homeworld, using the deadliest soldiers a man had ever commanded. He turned and strode toward his office, trailing smoke as he walked. A military man was bred for war, and in this case, it was truer than usual. He'd been among the first to be incubated in an artificial womb. He proudly kept the middle initials he'd been given at his decanting, signifying just that. And it had been on a Marine base where the first live births of AW children occurred. He'd been raised in a creche with the other children, 9 of them, and all but one had become Colonial Marines. The other one would have, if he hadn't been killed in an accident when he was still a prepube. Sure, the bulge brains had come up with androids later, but he wasn't vat scat. He was a real man, all his chromosomes in place, not a stray gene among them. A man who knew what he could do, what he must do. The general paused next to one of the specimen containers, put his hands on the thick plexiglass. It was cold to the touch. The alien inside didn't move, but he imagined it could feel him, was aware of him, even in its suspended state. Mark me, Spears thought at it. I'm your master. You live or die at my whim. Obey and live. Disobey and die. He moved away from the container, took another look at the killing machine within. Hell of a soldier, this thing. Would destroy or die for its queen without hesitation. He nodded at the alien, then walked away. He rounded the corridor's end and marched to the small office from where he ran the base. Damned civilian authorities on Earth had bollocksed it all up, just like they always did. Tried to fight a forest fire with little buckets of water. Tried to extinguish a raging conflagration with spit and prayer. The only way to kill a big fire was to use a bigger blaze. Burn its fuel, choke its oxy off, eat what it would eat, and starve it. Sure, you could punch holes in the aliens with armor piercers, could blow them up with bombs, but that was wasteful. What better way to fight a beast than with another beast of equal ferocity? Something that could hunt the enemies down because it knew how they thought, because it was like them. Like a king snake will kill a poisonous viper, or tame dogs will track a wild animal, the solution to the problem was painfully obvious. He hadn't believed that at first, until he got to know how the aliens operated. Now he was the strongest believer. The powers that were had been eliminated. Now it was up to him to carry on alone. No problem. Spears reached his office, opened the old-style hinged door, stepped inside. Major Powell, his first officer, stood next to the gunny running the computer terminal, peering down at the holoprojection that floated above the desk. Spears could read the words, even reversed and backwards, if he wanted, but his first reaction was surprise and a little anger.
Powell, I thought I told you to get to docking and clean up that snafu.
Sir, it's as clean as it's going to get, sir.
In my sanctum, Spears ordered.
The major nodded, said, "Continue, Gunny," and preceded Spears into the inner office. His office was spare. A chair, desk, comp terminal, couple of plaques on the sheet plastic walls. Spears circled the desk so that it was between him and Powell, but did not sit in the chair.
Well?
The specimen containers were destroyed, sir. Apparently, the lowest survivable setting on the sleep chambers was insufficient to keep the specimens themselves dormant. The, containers were dead. Usual exit mode, to judge from the blood spray patterns, and mostly consumed. The adult stage specimens apparently killed one of their own, and utilized its blood to burn free of the area in which they were contained.
Very resourceful, Spears said.
He took his cigar from between his lips and looked at the cold ash on the end. He put the cigar down into the ashtray on his desk.
Continue.
There were no signs of the other three. We assume all three survived. Specimens. Acid burns in various places indicated a battle between the stowaways and the aliens. I have done a preliminary debriefing of the CM sergeant, and from his report determined that one was killed by weapons fire on board, and the other two were ejected into space.
Damn.
Apparently, the female stowaway went EVA and battled the remaining pair, who survived for some minutes in hard vacuum without apparent ill effect.
The female did? Why not the Marine?
He suffered an injury during the fight.
Well, the space stuff, we already knew they can do that. The in-head compression chamber and the... what's it called?
Pseudo-hypothalamic regulator, Powell answered.
Right. Heats up the acid and keeps them from freezing.
The corpses of the two killed on ship were ejected.
Too bad. We might have gotten something from the DNA.
Spears looked at his dead cigar, thought about relighting it.
2 humans and half an android against 4 aliens in a closed environment. I wouldn't have thought they could survive. Their tactics might be interesting.
Apparently the stowaways have some prior experience with the aliens.
Oh?
We don't have anything on the woman. The bounce from Earth is shut down. But the military bibliocom is bringing up records on the Marine and android. The android, by the way, is Issue.
One of ours?
Affirmative.
Interesting. Are any of them infected?
Not according to the scan, no.
Too bad. Let me see the squirt from bibliocom when it arrives.
Gunny will have it in about 18 minutes, sir.
That's all, Powell.
Sir. Once Powell was gone, Spears sat. He leaned back, put his orthoplast boots up on the desk, picked up the cigar and relit it, took a deep drag and blew the smoke out in a blue-gray cloud. The ventilators whirred and sucked the smoke from the air. Maybe there was something to be gained here after all. It was a truly bad battle if nothing was gained. Even the illest of winds sometimes blew a breeze or two of good. He'd see what the library had to say about this Marine and android. And if they didn't have anything to offer, well, the techs could always use a couple more bodies in the hatching rooms.
You okay?
Wilks asked Billie. Yeah, fine.
You shouldn't have stomped on that guy's foot. He was just obeying orders.
Yeah? So was the guy who nuked Canberra during the '82 food riots.
How about you, Bueller?
No new damage, he said. Wilks looked around. The room was bigger than some cells he'd been in. 5 meters by 5. Fold-out bunks now flush against the wall, reinforced sheet plast, a double-thick door with a simple snap lock. A chemical toilet rested in one corner, bare white, no seat. A roll of wipes perched on a sink with a single water tap next to it. Nice play. A guy handy with a sliver of spring steel or stacked carb could pop the lock easy enough. Thing was, on a world where everybody lived inside a pressure dome, where were you gonna go, even if you did get out? They might steal another ship, but without some knowledge of navigation, not to mention knowing which human settlements were still untainted by alien infection, they wouldn't have a clue about where to go. Did you see the monitors we passed? Billie asked.
Yeah. They've still got spy sats in place. Military view only. That major who stopped and questioned us? He told me they could keep tabs on the war. He seemed like an alright guy. Almost apologetic. We'll probably be hearing from him again.
I don't have much experience with the military mind, Wilks. What is going on here?
Hell if I know. The general looks like a lot of RMs. That's regular Marines I've known. Eats, breathes, and shits the core. Probably runs the base so tight it hums. Probably doesn't matter to him that Earth is down the tubes. He's got his orders, and that's what he lives by. Or else he's got delusions of godhood. A lot of generals get that way. Thinks he can do anything. Hard to say which it is.
What do you think he's going to do with us? Wilks shook his head.
Dunno. He's obviously running some kind of experiment with the aliens. My bet it's, or was, when it still mattered, very hush-hush. Top secret stuff. We're sand in this guy's well-lubed machine.
You take me to the nicest places, Wilks. He laughed.
Can't say it's been dull, can you?
Billie managed a smile. Nope. That's a word that never crossed my mind. So, what now?
Ball is in their court. We wait and see what they do with it. Get some sleep.
With that, Wilks unfolded one of the cots and climbed onto it. Bueller did the same, pulling himself up easily and sprawling onto the thin material. After a moment, Billie pulled a third cot loose and lay on it. Wilks had been in the military long enough so he could sleep pretty much whenever he wanted. Whatever was going to happen was going to happen. He'd deal with it when it got here. Within a few moments, he dropped off.